Good morning, everyone. This is Joe Scarice, Nationwide Direct Private Lender, Senior Account Executive at Park Place Finance, and the co-founder of the Creative BRRRR Strategies podcast that we hold every week, typically on Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. But we now are featuring a special second Saturday with interviews with real estate professionals here at TCS Property Management on a rooftop deck down at 2nd and Chestnut in Philadelphia, PA. And today's discussion is a little different role. But before we get into the discussion, I'd like to thank Mr. Yardell Perkins, the other co-founder of the Creative BRRRR Strategies podcast. He's the founder also. Impressive for just being a small operation of podcast. But we'll be making some bigger announcements on where we're moving with Mr. Connor Quigley. I met Connor this past week, and we had a kind of funny discussion on Monday night on a mastermind, and I thought he'd be a great guy to interview me on ground up, becoming the new fix and flip and BRRRR strategy. So, Connor, thank you for taking the time this morning, and I'm glad that you were allowed to come here.
Thanks for having me.
You got full parental permission to come
exactly.
here. Love to get a little background on you, and then we can go into the questions that you set up for me to go over.
Sure, yeah. So I'm a licensed real estate agent in Philadelphia. Been here since about 2011, and I spent 7 to 8 years as a contractor in the area, and I've had my real estate license that whole time. I've, over the course of those years, I've acquired some property, mostly in South Philly, done some flips, and I'm looking to do my first new construction. So this discussion is very on the nose for me right now, and I'm interested to see Joe's takes on the questions we have.
Yeah, I mean, Philadelphia remains one of the most active infill development markets on the East Coast, particularly in neighborhoods where aging housing stock meets strong rental and resale demand. I mean, we had a discussion before we went on the film. Philadelphia, like a lot of urban cities, are having a little struggle with development. You have an influx of heavy rentals being brought to the market because they couldn't really sell them as condos or townhomes, and they turned them around in rentals. And the housing authorities now becoming a property owner, so they're grabbing a lot of the vouchers where there's days on the market in rentals and there's higher days on the market on inventory. Pricing has dropped about anywhere between 8 and 12% right now. It's leveling off.
Yep.
So I know we put some questions together for me to hopefully facilitate some of the things that you need to know.
Sure.
Whether it's Philadelphia or the greater Philadelphia area or just Pennsylvania as a whole, if that's a fair assessment. And we do have some live attendees here time to time for the podcast, so I appreciate your time taking here to be here this morning. So we'd love to hit me with the first question.
Yeah, so our first question is, why are more Philadelphia investors shifting from heavy rehabs to ground-up construction in 2026?
Well, as you know, when you go look at some listings, right, you're seeing that they've been gutted down to the studs and then they're up for sale because obviously somebody miscalculated, right? I think investors are not taking a deeper dive into hidden structural, mechanical, environmental risks to some of these properties. And these older Philly row homes and surprises are common, right? Foundation shifts, outdated plumbing stacks, knob and tube, ground up kind of eliminates a lot of that legacy risk. You control the designs, the materials, the layout efficiency, ceiling heights, energy performance. I think 26 is predictably an outperforming speculation, but I think you're still going to see new construction. It's just going to be definitely one-offs. I think you got to be you got to buy the land correctly. I think also the smarter borrower is buying the land, getting it shovel ready and permit ready first before they start. Because if they have that in hand, I think that's going to be a much better approach to a lender today than, hey, I want you to help me buy the land, and then I want to go get the permits and do it. That's just not how it's going to work, especially in Philadelphia right now, because we have a lot of inventory. So you got to be very prepared to present something more so if you're going to present the ground-up construction.
Okay, so you're saying if you were going to do ground-up construction, you think that you have to have the capital to buy the land, do the permits, and then go to a lender for construction and then permanent
I
loans?
think it's going to be a lot easier. I think because you're at the 40-yard line in your favor. You know what I mean? Like you could kick a field goal. You know what I mean? So I think the lender, knowing that this would be your first new construction, right? You're a licensed contractor, so that gets me a little comfortable. But how many new construction have you completed in the last 3 years?
Right.
And that's going to be the biggest question of new construction, right? How many new construction projects have you completed? So if you're at zero, and that's fine, we just got to be modest, right?
I'm at zero.
That's fine. So you have to hire a GC that has that 3 new construction projects.
Yeah.
That I have to vet, then get comfortable with that, and get comfortable with the ground up construction scope of work. Get comfortable with the architectural designs to match up. Is there contingencies involved? But you being a GC, I think, is to the advantage because you can foresee some of these things that would come up, even though you've not done new construction yourself.
Yeah, I think new construction does, like you said, eliminates a lot of the risk of that's in older homes. I mean, I walk through some properties, I walk through them all the time, and like the list prices that I see and the damage I see to these homes, I walk out of these properties thinking, whoever buys this at this price is going to lose their shirt. You know, because I can see those problems when I go in. You know, I know what to look for. And, you know, to me, new construction it's much cleaner. You know what you're getting. And, you know, like you said, I can go out and hire a builder who's done 500 homes very predictably. And, you know, I can take the risk of what I don't know about new construction out by hiring that part out. You know, I know construction, but I don't know ground up construction. So, I really want to remove my risk of the risk of what I don't know from the equation when I go to a lender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. What other questions do you have?
From a contractor's perspective, how does risk differ between gut rehabs and building from scratch? I think we touched on that a little bit.
A little bit, because rehabs carry an unknown risk, right?
Yeah.
Ground up carries an execution risk.
Right.
I think with rehabs, once walls open, the scope creeps into a whole different area. With new builds, plans are engineered in advance. The risk shifts from surprise damage to timeline discipline.
Yeah.
And change work orders make me always nervous.
Yep.
Execution equals discovery. So I think the most important thing is trying to stick to the draw schedule to make sure that your contractor knows how to execute a draw schedule with the new construction.
Yeah.
And you have to be somewhat liquid for that unforeseen shift in something, because if the scope of work changes, right, midway, and you got to shift with a different perspective to complete something in the new construction, you have to have that liquidity, because a lender like myself will only lend on completed projects, completed work.
Right.
Now, if you hypothetically bring 2x6s and metal and all that stuff to bring and say, hey, Joe, we're going to be putting this up in the next week, it's here, and you take pictures of it, I might be able to give you the money for that material spent, but I need it on site, and you can't decorate a background and make it look like it's it's at the site and it's not.
So you're talking about a change order that was not in the original scope for a project.
Yeah. So you have to stay in. You got to stay in good communication with your lender.
Yeah.
And walk it through.
And also, I think just have extra money.
Yeah, I think
that helps a lot. But
if your project's $300,000, and if you don't have $100,000 just sitting around, God forbid, $50,000 to $100,000, you're going to have problems.
Yeah. So is ground up actually more predictable from a budgeting standpoint than an older row home rehab?
I would say absolutely yes. I think we have the average building is built 1954, but Philadelphia goes back to the 17th century. So a properly bid ground up project with stamp plans, material specs, some subcontractor scopes is often more comfortable than gutter rehabs where change work orders explode margins. Predictability requires fixed subcontractor contracts, clear material allowances, and contingency reserve, which is at least 10 to 15%.
Yeah.
For a new investor, I'd probably say 20%. When my perfect rehab we'll just draw a comparative. My perfect rehab is somebody using a 20% contingency, somebody that's buying a property that's the rehab is 50% under the purchase price. So if you're buying something for $200, I want it to be no more than what, $100,000.
Right.
So that's an average buy somewhere. And when it goes over 50%, I really start scrutinizing the scope of work. Now with the new construction, if you're building $1 million home and your general construction cost is only $250, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, what are you putting in cardboard? You know what I mean? Like, it's $1 million home, and you're telling me your general construction costs are only $250,000. That doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, usually a new construction project, the profitability is between 15 and 20%.
Okay. And so, what are you looking for in terms of what's a typical ratio for? Let's say I'm doing a new construction build, and I go to a lender, and if I say I'm going to build $1 million home, what are you typically seeing for construction costs?
I mean, at least $200 a square, minimum, maybe more, $250 a square. And now people want bigger homes.
Right.
Irony enough, I was driving in my hometown, and a friend of mine, she lived at this corner home with her parents, garage in the back, double garage in the house, and I drove by, and they just knocked that thing down to the ground. And they literally took up almost every piece of space on that lot. And I texted her and said, "Hey, Lynn, do you see what they did to your parents' property?" She goes, "Yeah, I heard. It's like a monstrosity." I said, "Oh my gosh, I mean, they're literally going to pass the Great Pool Pond right through the window to the next house." I said, "I mean, they're taking every measurable piece of property there and making it a house."
Yep.
And we were laughing about it a little bit. But that's what's happening. Like, a lot of these Cape Cods, people are just either going down to the foundation or leveraging from that and going up and out and sideways and building out a mega home within that initial foundation. So it's interesting, and I think obviously we're talking about timeline discipline. Yep. It's also about timing. So if you're building in Colorado, right, you're not going to build in the middle of the winter. You can't crack ground.
Right.
It's frozen. So, like, the timing of new build is always very important. So if you're looking to do, most of your better new contractors are right now looking to hit the backhoe into the ground, right? So the strategy for fix to flip, BRRRR, or ground up is always timing of your spring market's busy. Like I after these podcasts that we're doing today, I have four calls to make. That's pretty good for a Saturday.
Busy season.
So heavy rehab carries most volatility. So with new construction, longer timelines. I mean, an average new construction takes anywhere from 8 to 11 months, where a rehab takes anywhere between 5 and 7 months.
Yeah, but so you're saying that the timeline being longer sort of makes up for the risk that an older property brings to the table from an investment perspective.
And I'll tell you the biggest reason. Because what if I can't escrow interest payments for the rehab, but I can escrow interest payments for the new construction?
Why would you be able to escrow just the new construction?
Because typically you don't. It's just part of the lending piece. If there's room in there, we'll escrow what we can. But what if there's no room? What if you're tight at 70% LTV on after repair value? But in a new construction space, if you own the land already, right? So say you bought the land for $100,000, and soft costs were 20. I'm just using round numbers, please don't. I'm going to take 60% of that. So 60% of 120 is what? That's 12. That's $72,000. My new construction is $250, or it's around $300,000. And at the end of the day, the place is going to be worth $600,000. Is that fair?
Okay.
So I can escrow 12 months of interest payments through what you bought the place for cash and soft costs, and round up your construction to 100% because you have a lot of room in the deal, right? With a rehab loan, you're buying a fix to rent or fix to flip. There, you don't have those margins right now. They're much smaller.
Right.
You're buying the property, you're doing the rehab. You're probably right at 70% LTV on ARV. You're probably right at 90% loan of cost on purchase. And you could say you're buying it through a wholesaler. They're gobbling up all the opportunity of you escrowing anything, right? So if you're buying it on the market, same thing. You're buying it at tight because a lot of these real estate agents, as we know, are not being realistic to the market, which is softening.
Yep.
We're not having a hard, medium, or crazy landing. It's just softening.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm not seeing too many, and I'm on way too many email lists, but, the deals I'm being sent right now are not stuff I'd be buying,
Well,
personally.
let's talk about that real quick. Most of your wholesalers that exist today are on videos now because they're not busy. They're trying to find business, right?
Sure.
And any decent wholesaler that has credit above 660 has a lender like myself funding them the deal that they identify off market, right? So what are they selling to the public? The stuff that they don't want to take on, and they can make some extra money to put toward their buying of the deals that they're finding in the off market for themselves. Because
for sure.
we don't collect tax returns, pay stubs, W-2s, or 1099s. We look at bank statements, the deal, and the appraisal, and the client, and your experience in the last 3 years. Same thing with the new construction as well. We're asking, hey, what have you done lately?
Right.
Not what you did 10 years ago. I built 100 homes. Okay, when? 2001. I'm like, that's a whole different timeline. You see where I'm going with that?
Yep.
So you got to control people's ego. Stay calm when they're telling you the big story. Get back to what have you done in 3 years. And it's a humbling experience for a lot of people.
Sure. Do we think that ground up provides stronger retail and rental exit options compared to traditional flips? And I think this answer probably depends a lot on the area, and because my experience in Philly, like if you're looking for the strongest rental areas, you're not going to be doing a lot of ground up there because those areas are completely filled out. So but I do think in an area like that has a lot of infill, that's definitely a valid question, and the answer is probably yes.
I would agree, and I would agree it depends what city you're in.
Sure.
So I'm a study of a lot of urban cities. And Midwest Sunbelt market is still very good to build out. There's plenty of land. You're not in a rural area either. You're building in the suburb and or the urban settings. What I am seeing that developers are doing, they're building lots to make them 2-family houses. So ultimately, if they have to hold it, they're making money.
Right.
Once it's stabilized, if they don't sell the property to a home buyer or an investor that wants to buy. There's a lot of investors who want to buy turnkey. What investor wouldn't want to buy a turnkey new construction with a warranty on it?
If it's making you money, I think everyone wants it.
Well, there's a lot of professions out there that they don't have the time to get dirty. Do you think a doctor has time to do heart surgery or buy turnkey new construction?
Right.
And let somebody manage it out for them. And they put 30 or 40% down, it's great. But if the contractor can't sell the property, they're at least leaving themselves open to the possibility of refinancing it, holding it for a couple of years, until maybe the market rebounds or whatever for a sale.
Right.
And get a 30-year mortgage, maybe even a 10-year interest only with a 30-year amortization. So I think new construction commands premium rent. I think it has a lower maintenance in the first 3 to 5 years, and I think it appeals to retail buyers seeking warranty and modern layouts, and it also attracts institutional rental buyers.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think, the big bag hedge funds, if they're buying anything, they're buying land to build out townhome communities. They're not buying the single-family home down the block here. That's not enough meat on the bone for them. But when they could build out 40 townhomes and hold them to rent for people, that's money. I'll give you an example. If you've been to Fort Lauderdale in the last 5 years, on the other side of the Hard Rock Cafe Casino was kind of the tougher area of Fort Lauderdale. That area now has all brand new apartment buildings all over the place. Beautiful. You would never know that was one of the worst areas of Fort Lauderdale. Now, do you think an individual owns that or a hedge fund owns that?
I would be impressed if it was an individual.
Correct. So, yeah, I think the build-to-rent trend is here, present. I think it's a little more respected now than ever before. It's not like I got to sell the property right away. Your home buying experience is not as motivated in that demographic of 25 to 40-year-old. They rather rent as long as they can, or stay home with family as long as they can till their parents change the locks.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So you're seeing an increase in purpose-built rentals versus renovating older housing.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think tenants are increasingly, they're looking for the value of energy efficiency, open layouts, in-unit laundry, lower cost utility costs. New builds outperform outdated layouts in rent stability. Okay.
Yep.
I'll give an example. Yordell, who is a colleague of mine, lives in a multi-family apartment building. I walk in there, I lose 10 pounds because the heat is at 110 degrees because it's not controlled by him. It's controlled by the building. I don't have to go to the sauna that day.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Right. He has to open up all the windows because I can't breathe. Right. So, in a more controlled environment, I like more of a 65. You know what I mean? Like 63. Keeping it real. And I'm like, oh man, how the hell do you breathe in this thing? But he's not paying the heat anyway, so it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't feel comfortable in that type of setting.
Right.
And like using Philadelphia as an example, the apartment buildings units right now, you control the heat, you control it. It's like your place,
For sure.
And the rents are cheap right now, so it's almost desensitizing somebody to go buy a home themselves.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially in my generation, who can't afford it, first of all, but then also just don't want to deal with all of especially in the Philadelphia market, where your first-time home buyer is looking at a house that has a lot of problems. They're not buying the $1.2 million new constructions. Your first house is going to have a lot of problems. It's going to have, windows that are leaky. You're going to have rooms that are cold. So I think a lot of people would strongly prefer, a unit that has modern amenities, modern mechanicals, and all that. Yeah.
So we're going to go on to capital stack, right?
Yep. So how does new construction financing differ from traditional fix and flip lending in structure and risk?
Well, again, it's about experience in the last 3 years. What have you done lately? It used to be a 4-year look back, but guidelines have changed in the lending space. It used to be a 4-year look back, and then what have you done before COVID? Now they just want to know what you've done in the last 3 years. Well, I did something 4 years ago. That's nice. What have you done in the last 3 years? That part of the application discussion is the most difficult because people just want to not tell the truth. They get very ego-driven, and there's not a level of modesty. And I just need to know what you did in the last 3 years. If it's zero, it's fine. Your leverage is different. The loan is different. Okay? The construction layout is different. The LTCs, I'm not going to be able to go up to 93% on a purchase if you have zero experience. I'm going to be somewhere between 80 and 85% because the odds of you failing are higher.
Yeah, of course.
We see a lot of failed projects in Philadelphia. Just they're on the market,
Yeah.
right? You need also have to understand draw-based disbursements. We're very lucky in our construction space. New construction, we do require a physical appraisal, but on the fixed to rent, fixed to flip, we allow a AI appraisal, where you take all the pictures and we run our comps and we go from there, and then all the disbursements are AI generated through your phone. So at the end of the day, you can get your money within 24 to 48 hours. But I've heard nightmares with disbursements. So if you're not accustomed to that and your contractor's not accustomed to it, you could have a problem.
What you said, you require physical appraisals on new construction. At what point?
Initially.
Just at the land.
Yeah, well, they want to come out and take a look. They do a physical appraisal to see what the scope of work. They go to see the property. They take some pictures of the area. A physical appraiser.
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of these appraisers are doing it, so I have a comfortable court in having those discussions. But from the rehab perspective, all of it's AI now. You could request a in-person appraisal, but why? I mean, new construction's closing. You can close a loan if you own the land. You have everything in place. I'm closing in 3 to 4 weeks. Say 4 weeks.
Okay.
That's 30 days. On a rehab loan, meaning a fixed to rent, fixed to flip, that's called RTL. The other is called GUC, ground up construction. I'm closing in 10 days because I'm doing AI appraisal, AI draws, everything's quick. We're chasing you down to close, not the other way around. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah.
And And again, if there's not enough room in it, we can't escrow interest-only payments on the fixed-to-rent, fixed-to-flip traditionally. If there is room, we can. If there's 3 months of room in there, we'll do it. Of course we will. But on the new construction, if you own the land already, I'm telling you, we're escrowing 12 months. So you don't go into this mortgage shock, right? It's inspection-based funding. It's what have you done and completed. Risk is controlled through draw inspections and budget line item review and contingency planning.
Right.
So you're always having a conversation with your lender, whoever that is, whether it's me or the next person. So I hope that, and structure beats rate all the time. For new construction, rates are somewhere between high single digit, low double digit. New fixed to rent, fixed to flip starts in single digit to low double digit. It's all around the same. But who's getting the deal done quickly and giving you the best leverage for the best circumstance is the question of the day.
Yep. Are new construction comps cleaner and easier to defend than heavily renovated properties?
They're more uniform, okay? They're a lot more consistency there because you're getting the premium price of values on what the appraisal should look like. You know, with comps on fixed to rent, fixed to flip, it's more of an opinion. You know, hey, I put a half bath in here, I should get that picked up, and the square footage. Here, the new construction square footage is 1,800 square feet, granite countertops, you know, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's very hard to kind of work around, and it's easier to bracket, right? Yep. So rehab Rs depend heavily on quality, execution, and subjective adjustments.
Sure.
Where new construction is pretty straightforward.
Yeah. I've found that. Well, I mean, you know, everything in our discussion depends on the area, but especially in Philadelphia, when I've been looking at, you know, I'm looking at buying property to do new constructions, and what I'm finding is that in the areas that I want to build in, there just aren't any new construction comps.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at land, and maybe there's one comp in the area, and it's 500 or 600 days old. So I'm wondering, you know, what do I take to a lender here? I have one comp. That's really not much to stand on. When, you know, if I do a rehab in Philadelphia, there's an almost unlimited number of similar houses.
I think you got to be disciplined. You got to have a good GC with verified projects completed. I think understanding your market and being humble to what the value will be and buying it correctly. And I would buy the land outright and get all the third party done, which is not a lot. It's not a lot of money in the sense of the construction piece. But we're giving you the money back. We're giving you 60% of that back. So you're not going to be stuck with that. That's going to get allocated into the deal one way or another.
Right.
I think your permitting and zoning needs to be all intact. You need to have a good relationship with your neighborhood association, whether it's Philly or another urban setting.
Yep.
I think understanding and having neighborhood relations. You know, you piss off a couple neighbors, your deal is going to go. You're going to have a lot of problems.
Yep. I agree with that.
So understanding neighborhood relations, understanding zoning and permitting, working with a licensed expediter, a good attorney in the market is going to be very smart. I think parking is a premium. If you can pull off getting a parking spot or garage.
Yeah, I actually just on that note, like in some areas I'm looking at, there won't be enough new construction comps that have garages and don't have garages for me to actually discern how much a garage is worth in that area. So it's actually very hard to predict in some of these areas what the new construction will be worth.
Well, this is the funny you say this. Bring a reminder. I was working on a 3-unit with a beautiful garage. The appraiser only gave the garage $20,000 or $25,000 in value. To rebuild that same garage, because they built it, these guys, would cost $100,000. So, like, what are you doing here? Like, why can't you give that value to that garage when the replacement is way more than what you're giving? I think it was like $15,000 they gave. It was something really small compared to what the replacement numbers were. I think scalability in what we're talking about, what the good thing we're talking about is there's more money than deals. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, not for everyone, certainly, but...
Well, if somebody doesn't have good credit, somebody called me, hey, listen, I have not so okay credit, but I have a lot of great deals and I made $100,000 in the business last year. So then you obviously put nothing toward keeping your credit above 660. Right. So that means you don't know how to manage your books.
Right.
So why would I give you any more money? So if you made 100,000 supposedly in this business last year, and your credit's 580, you don't deserve a loan.
No,
Is that a fair? I hope that's a fair assessment. I don't think I'm being unfair. That means you don't know how to manage anything, and I'm going to be part of your problems.
Right.
Right. So scalability in new construction, you got to identify that very next deal almost immediately while you're building and you're midway on the current one, because you're creating your comps in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So if you could pull off getting the first one approved, right? The objective would be to find the next great little piece of property within a mile or 2 mile radius.
Sure. Yeah, I think everyone has designs on that scalability, but it sounds a lot easier than it is. So what if I'm looking for a builder, what should I be looking for? What's a disciplined ground up builder look like from a lender's perspective? What are you looking for in the builder that I could be hiring?
Transparency.
Okay.
Resume. Willing to provide their resume. Somebody that cannot provide you 3 new builds in the last 3 years, that means they only have to do new build a year with their GC license.
I would not consider a person who's building
But you know how hard it is to get that resume from that GC?
I don't.
Well, you're going to find out real soon. Because reputation, we check the license, we do a background check on the license, make sure there's no moving parts. And I think at the end of the day, if they can't provide that, why would I feel comfortable doing that project with you?
Yeah.
That is the biggest caveat in the new construction space, if you don't have the experience. If you have the experience, well, this is also, let's spin this a little differently. Why don't you just partner the first 2 times with somebody that has that experience? If they've done 1 to 3 builds in the last 3 years.
You're talking about the builder or
no, it could be the investor as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you see an investor completing a project, hey, do you need a capital partner on your next deal? Can I take 30% of the ownership? Now I'm in the green room.
Right.
Right? Or you found a GC. You go to the physical sites and you meet the GC.
Yeah.
And you grab a cup of coffee with him or her and say, listen, I need your experience on my resume.
Right.
I'll give you 19% ownership on these projects, but I need your license and your resume to get the deals completed. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Now you're making him part of the deal, or him or her part of the deal.
Right. That's absolutely part of my process of trying to find a builder that I had confidence bidding projects. I mean, bidding these new construction projects was I'm going to meet them. I'm going to their sites. I'm looking at their sites. I'm looking at their subcontractors. Are their sites a mess? Are they getting violations on these properties? This is all, well, not all of it, but you can look up the permits. You can look up the public records. You can look up all the mistakes they've made, how many constructions they've done. So,
Listen, I walk right up to sites down at the shoreline. I walk right into sites with my boots, and I hand out my flyers and cards. And I like immaculate play. I'm not going to break my leg walking in and say hi or hello. So I get it.
Yeah, it's important. How critical is understanding Philadelphia zoning and permitting before buying a vacant lot? Obviously critical.
That's a whole other discussion, and there's workshops out there for you to get very proficient with that. There's a lot of good zoning attorneys out there. Actually, we have one at 12 o'clock if you want to come back.
Yeah.
Stick around. Natalie, that's definitely a question we could hit them up with.
Yeah, my advice is go to law school or hire a lawyer.
Yeah, or both.
Or both, yeah.
Don't go to Facebook, self-proclaimed lawyers of Facebook. That's the ones that get you in trouble and steer you the wrong way.
Yeah. There are a lot of really great websites in Philly. There's, zoning lawyers websites where you can get an idea of what, if you can read the zoning carefully, an idea of what you could do with a lot. But at the end of the day, you should not be buying a lot where you do not have a zoning attorney review exactly what can be done on the lot, and if you need a variance, exactly how long that's going to take, and what are the chances of approval, and all that. I think it's critical to, I already have a lawyer who's reviewing my deals that I haven't even done yet, because I want to avoid making a huge mistake at the zoning. Because if you can't,
you have a great opportunity with me. I have an underwriting course coming up February 21st, and I can walk you right through a ground-up construction.
Great.
There in the class, so we'll talk about that off the podcast. But let's move along so we can get into because some of this other subject I think is important.
do you think the scalability of new construction is better than
Yeah.
than rehabs?
Yeah, I mean, once you're in that space and you're just moving to the next deal, I mean, like, listen, say you have a two-family framework that you want to just build two-family houses, right? Mm-hmm. You could take that zoning documentation, that permit documentation, and just copy and paste, transpose, change the fifth word or the address, and you could take that. Once you have that with your architect, you could take that same design, same material cost, and just carry it forward.
Yep.
All you're doing is transposing and changing the address, right? Am I right? And if you're buying the standard lot in Philadelphia,
Yeah, I think the real issue is, the supply of the lots, because
that's maybe Philadelphia's not your market.
Yeah, it may
Maybe Cumberland County, New Jersey is your market, or Salem County is your market, or Gloucester County, or Atlantic County, and maybe the suburbs, or maybe Delaware is your market. Maybe Philadelphia's not your market.
Could be, yeah.
Do you understand where I'm going with that?
Yeah,
I mean, they're building like gangbusters down in Delaware. There's only 3 C's down there, big 3 C's in Delaware. You got chickens, chemicals, and capital. That's what keeps that state afloat, right?
Yep.
Kent, Sussex, Newcastle County. That's the 3 C's. So let's talk about mistakes to avoid.
Sure.
And underestimating soft costs, right? Ignoring holding cost risk, and overbuilding for the neighborhood. That's a big concern you have.
Yeah, I'm concerned about all of those things, but
I don't know if Philadelphia is the market to do new construction right now.
Well, obviously people are still doing it. But
they're still doing it, but you're seeing, how many booms do you not see anymore in the market? Because everything's built out in Center City.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, you see it up in University City, but like from a single family to 4-family, how much land is really available, and is it where is it where somebody would really want to live anyway?
Right. Yeah. The supply is very tight in Philadelphia for empty buildable lots. There's lots of lots for sale that are too small for the local zoning that you'd have to get a variance for, or they're too big and you have to cut them up, or all sorts of things. And then I think the holding cost risk is huge, because you look at some lots that have a lot of potential. You could maybe do 5 or 6 houses on them, but then you have to go through zoning and you might be stuck with that lot, which generates you no money for years. Or they may just tell you no. They have the ability to just say, no, we don't like your project.
You have to have your power team set up. That's why I tell anybody that's in this business, so anybody in this business, you definitely want to have a good power team and go to some zoning meetings to see who's winning and losing.
Yeah.
But we're going to move this along a little because we ran behind a little bit. So let's get some final takeaway. Choosing between heavy rehab or ground up, right?
Yeah, I think it always depends on the deal, but there's tons of advantages to ground up, and it's a lot cleaner in a lot of ways, and it's really about if you're an investor and you have money to do either one, you're really just trying to pick what risk and what problems you're going to have, because either way you go, you're going to have risk and problems. And you got to lean on your own experience, and take that all into consideration when you're picking your next projects.
So I think 2026 rewards disciplined operators. Obviously, I think that's what we got from this discussion. Not aggressive leverage, right? I think I agree with you that it's not ground up is not easier, but it's cleaner.
Yeah.
I think if structured properly, I think investors who prioritize execution, liquidity, and repeatable systems, like I'm telling you, you just copy and paste and transpose the same architectural designs and identify lots that fit that, will outperform those chasing short-term flip spreads, because there's just not enough room, not enough meat on the bone. And Connor, I want to thank you for this time. This was pretty fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Can we just get a brief overview again, who you are and how do we reach you if need be?
Yeah, so the easiest way to reach me, first of all, is through my website, which is yourphillyagent.com. What I'm working on a lot now is vetting my own projects. I have some private lenders lined up, and I have, the credit lined up to do projects, but I'm spending a lot of time trying to find good deals, and I'm not finding any that, maybe I'm trying to match, how good my deals used to be, and I'm not going to find any deals that good, so I'm trying to vet my own projects right now. I'm also a real estate agent, so I have a couple of just regular home buyer clients, and I also have some investors who we're looking to do deals with, and I manage a couple I manage some of the properties I own, so that's how I spend my time. And if you're looking to invest, you know where to find me now.
Excellent, Connor. Thank you. This is Joe Scarice, Nationwide Direct Private Lender, Senior Account Executive at Park Place Finance. Part 1 of 3 podcasts coming live to you this morning. So I want to thank Connor for volunteering me, dragging him in at the same time to be my co-host this morning. But we'll be back in just a little bit with Nancy O'Brien of Jumpstart Lehigh Valley. And thank you. Good morning, everyone. Part 2 of 3 great interviews this morning, live down here at TCS Property Management on a rooftop deck at 2nd and Chestnut. My name is Joseph Scarice, co-founder and co-host of the Creative BRRRR Strategies podcast, along with Yardell Perkins of Perkatech, our social media strategist, administrator of all our background work, video work for our ongoing podcast. We're typically every Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we also do guest speaking discussions or mastermind discussions every second Saturday of the month at 10 a.m., 11 a.m. now, and 12 p.m. And we have another great guest here this morning. We're live right now, maybe about 250 Facebook groups, YouTube, and all kinds of. So if you're not supposed to be here, Nancy, you're in a lot of trouble. So I have Nancy O'Brien with Jumpstart Lehigh Valley. I've known Nancy for a little bit from back my first trust days, but I am actually a nationwide direct private lender now with Park Place Finance, Senior Account Executive, and I ran into Nancy just recently and thought it would be a great time to have her out here and discuss what's going on with her and Jumpstart Lehigh Valley. A little brief overview, who you are, what you do.
So I'm Nancy O'Brien, and I'm the director of Jumpstart Lehigh Valley. Jumpstart is a program that was originally founded in the Germantown section of Philadelphia by developer Ken Weinstein, and it helps people who are interested in becoming real estate investors in their own communities. It helps them by offering them training, mentoring, and paths to lending, and networking and other resources around the community so that they can get their businesses started.
So from teacher to investor, learning real estate without blowing up your finances, how new investors can master deal analysis and underwriting and pro forma modeling without risking the real capital. Ken's built up a pretty solid foundation to all the Jumpstarts. Why did you pick Jumpstart to do what you're doing now?
So I, as Joe is saying, started in my career as a teacher, a high school teacher in Philadelphia, and it was a very rewarding career. I was doing that for about 10 years and transitioned into real estate pretty organically or naturally, just bought my first home, bought a duplex, and turned my old home into a rental, turned one side of the duplex into the rental and lived in it. And I just started getting more and more interested in real estate and was transitioning into it when I happened across Ken Weinstein at a meeting and got to talking with him. And that was around the time he started the Jumpstart Germantown program. And I ended up working in Ken's office at that time and helping with some of the logistics for the original Jumpstart program. And I came back to the Jumpstart program during the 10-year anniversary celebrations of Jumpstart Germantown, and kind of revisited it and thought about, what sort of an exciting chapter of my life that was, being part of that. And it's really been expanding. It's been adopted by, I believe, 24 other communities. And I thought it would be a great time to expand it up to my new home in the Lehigh Valley area.
Yeah, I used to live in the Lehigh Valley, so I have a lot.
Yeah.
I have a lot of ties to that. I was actually have mutual family members. We own properties up there at one given time or another. I've owned properties there at one time or another since 2007. So I've been there before the Renaissance and now the Renaissance. And I actually talked to one of my cousins who owns a bunch of buildings down at the Circle in Easton just yesterday. So, but getting to the biggest beginner mistake, where are you seeing that, and where do you think that could tie into Lehigh Valley and you and Jumpstart Lehigh Valley?
So some of the biggest, I was very lucky, I should say, and when I started in real estate was well over 10 years ago. The market was easier. It was easier to pick up properties at a price that was forgiving. The market is not forgiving these days. So one of the biggest things that I stress, I'm also a mentor for the original Jumpstart program, as well as starting my Jumpstart Lehigh Valley program. So one of the biggest things I'm stressing, both to the people I mentor for the original program and in my new Lehigh Valley program, is that it's really important to have a very good understanding of your numbers. I should say I was a math teacher, so of course numbers have always been close to my heart, and that was one of the pieces that I picked up, more quickly when it came to learning the real estate business, was how to run a good pro forma, how to look at your spreadsheet. So some of the biggest beginner mistakes, I think, are underestimating your expenses, particularly your carrying costs for rentals and your construction costs. People like to be very optimistic about the rents or the resale prices that they are going to get, which, good to be optimistic, but when you're writing your pro forma, you want to be conservative in your estimates. You always, if you are running a construction project, always want to leave a good contingency budget. I know you touched on that in your last interview. 15% is a good, base point for construction contingency budget. So meaning if you're planning to spend $100,000 on your construction, budget $15,000 for what you don't know is going to happen until you get into it. I do want to mention one mistake that I remember Ken Weinstein warning us all about is do not fall in love with your properties. I know it's Valentine's Day. We're familying on February 14th, but try to save your love for that special someone. Don't fall in love with your real estate properties. You want to look at it very objectively and not be so moved and so eager and so in love with this property that you turn a blind eye or make projections that are too optimistic. So.
Yeah, I think the class and the framework what Ken teaches is great. And it definitely gives you a small base, but there's so much more to learning about before leverage. You know what I mean? How can someone realistically learn underwriting and deal analysis without putting real money at risk? Now, I know that answer because I teach a class on that, but how are you going to do that at Jumpstart Lehigh Valley is the question.
Well, I'm going to teach a section just on running the pro forma. The other thing that's good about the Jumpstart programs is that after people graduate, they're paired with a mentor. So I know, not too long ago, my one mentee, little shout out to Mia Bowie, who's with Keller Williams Mainline. She was looking at a property. She said, hey, could we hop on a Zoom call? We sat down and ran the pro forma together. So that way she's getting somebody who's experienced who can kind of look over her numbers and say, this is what this means. This is a realistic number for this. and go through it. And one thing I should say is that I was actually very proud of my mentee, Mia, because I don't like to tell people what to do as a mentor. I like to give them information and then let them make their own judgments. And she really did like this property. It looked promising on the surface, but when she dug into the numbers, she made what I do think was a good decision probably to pass on this particular property because the numbers were just too tight. And I know she felt a little disappointed, but I was actually very proud because it meant she was disciplined in looking at her analysis and knowing when, this just wasn't the one. And so now she's on to looking for the next.
So if you were teaching a beginner today, what are the first 3 numbers they must learn to analyze before anything else?
True operating costs, not guessing, really dig in, even like call an insurance broker and say, hey, what's it gonna cost me to insure this property?
I think builder's risk is a lot different than stabilized insurance. So you got a big gamut there, and then, I just want to add one thing. Do you advise anybody, like, hey, listen, if you're pulling permits, that's going to change the tax base to this property?
No, I haven't thought about that, but now that you mention it.
If you pull permits, who do they notify? Tax assessors department.
Right.
So Lehigh Valley's big on pulling permits for, plumbing and HVAC. You can't work around that. Those towns will squash in a split second. Philadelphia, anywhere.
Yeah.
So if a permit's pulled, they're notifying the tax assessor's office. So, like, how would you, now, knowing Lehigh Valley, taxes are not bad, but they can go up 20, 30%. With a new tax assessment.
So I would say now that you've given me this good idea to add this to my pro forma personally goes out 10 years. And so I account for mostly appreciation in my rental income, also appreciation in the expenses. So I might just put in year 2 or 3 a jump in your taxes if you've done a huge
that's if you had a bathroom or
if
you've
done a huge renovation. Then I think that makes sense.
Are you suggesting to your mentees not to go heavy in the renovations?
I'm not necessarily suggesting that. It depends. A lot of people come into Jumpstart programs. They might have a background in the trades. They might have a background in construction, or maybe they have, a close friend or family member. I personally did not have a background in construction. I just jumped headfirst into it anyway. But I was just very careful and proactive in understanding the construction process and talking to and learning from my contractors. So I wouldn't necessarily advise against a big construction project. It's hard to find properties that are really going to perform well for you without being willing to take on some construction.
So how should new investors practice building performance so they understand cash flow reserves and downside risk?
Well, we talked about the pro forma, so you can go, to on my website or any of really the Jumpstart websites, you can download a sample pro forma and just start looking at some properties on the MLS. I've also been working as a side project with a cousin of mine who does app development. My cousin James, he is a business executive and works on app development as his kind of side project. And we've been putting together a game that's a real estate simulation game, and it lets you look at sample properties and kind of walks you through the process of evaluating those properties and gives you some guidance on how to fill out a pro forma. And the idea is you see which of these properties I would buy if they were real properties, which of them I wouldn't, and then it runs a little simulation to see how that performs over time. So it's a work in progress. You can check it out at dealbreak.com. But as I said, it's work in progress. So that is one method. You can download our sample pro formas online, go into the MLS, or go evaluate some wholesale deals. And again, if you're out there evaluating real properties and you come across things that don't work, don't feel like a bad, in not having found a property that worked on the first shot. That's really your classroom. That's your room for practicing, trying it out. And those deals that don't work, you learn more and you practice your pro forma, and you move on to the next.
I might extend you a gift.
What's that?
I'll give you my pro forma.
Oh, cool.
The actual lender's pro forma.
I would love that.
Yeah, so then they really can't screw up. Well, if they do, then they're in a lot of trouble. So, but my pro forma is really the determining factor. Are they going to get what are they going to get funded? I mean, your pro forma is kind of more from the real estate investor perspective. So I'll be more than happy to provide that to you.
Yeah, That would be great. I could post
Yeah, I
it.
think one will be on fix to rent, fix to flip. One will be on ground up construction, which I'm not sure if you're going to touch on that, and then DSCR, the exit strategy, if need be. So risk versus hype. Social media often glamorizes fast flips and rapid scaling. Everybody's a Facebook legend in their own mind. How do you help people separate education from entertainment or bullshit?
Well, social media, it doesn't really matter what the genre is, whether it's people posting their vacation pictures or posting their real estate shots. They're kind of showing the fun part. They're showing the glory. They're not showing what didn't work out. They're not showing, the sad night they spent eating a bowl of Cheerios on their couch. They're just showing the sort of highlight reels and the fun moments of their life. Real estate is no different. So I don't think that that's a good place to get education. You do want to look at a program like Jumpstart, look at whatever your local investor meetups are a great place to get education. Make sure you're getting your information from real sources and not people who are trying to build their social media followings.
So simulation learning. Can analyzing 50 to 100 deals on paper actually prepare somebody for real acquisition? And what should they be tracking?
So I would actually, as much as, I'm a numbers person, I would say no. Analyzing deals on paper will not prepare you for real acquisition because real estate investing requires a lot of skills. It's not just one skill. You have to be at least somewhat good at a lot of different things, right? Like you have to understand the construction process. You have to understand the property sourcing process, the tenant management aspect of it, what buyers are going to want if you're reselling properties. But what analyzing properties on paper can help you learn is your financial analysis. And that is only one of the skills that you need, but it is one of the most important skills because if the number doesn't work, it doesn't matter how good you are at any of those other things, your property is not going to work. So it's one of the most important skills, and yes, analyzing deals on paper can help you with that aspect, that skill.
Understanding financing. How important is it for new investors to understand lending structures, DSCR, bridge, amortization, reserves before making offers? I'm a fan of that, but I had to throw it in there.
Understanding financing is very critical. It's part of understanding the entire financial picture of your real estate investment. So taking on debt increases your risk a little bit or a lot, depending on the nature of the debt and the nature of the project. As an example, if you thought your construction project was going to take 2 months and it takes a year, well, now you're paying interest on your loan for 10 more months than you might have budgeted. So you really want to understand what the nature of your debt is, what the interest rate is, what the payment's going to look like, understand the different types of debt that you can take on, like a construction loan versus an acquisition loan, understand the reserve requirements that the bank might or lender might require from you, and understand how that's all going to play out in your real estate financials. Taking on debt does elevate your risk. It also can elevate your returns. So it's not something you want to ignore or avoid, but you just want to know kind of what balance makes sense for what project in terms of how much debt to take on.
I'm going to give you another gift.
Yes.
I'm going to send you the checklist, that standard for fixed to rent, fixed to flip, and DSCR submissions.
Nice.
So you can provide that to your mentees.
Excellent.
I'm gift giving today. Isn't
Wow.
that amazing? I'm just giving things away. You know what I mean? So that ties into the power of mentorship. What role did mentorship play in your journey? And how should new investors vet mentors properly? I think that's a good question, actually.
So mentorship played an incredibly important role in my journey. My original mentor probably was Ken Weinstein, because as he was developing that original Jumpstart program, I was one of the sort of guinea pig trainees.
Yeah, you must have been right from the beginning. Because when you and I had dealings, it was like 10 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2015 it started. And so he was sort of the mentor to the original class of people, and then the program grew so large that he started asking other people to come in and volunteer and mentor, and I was formally assigned a different mentor through the program who also helped me. And I would say also I've gotten a lot of mentorship in smaller aspects from a lot of different people along the way. I would include contractors in that group, because I would just hang out on the construction site and pester them with questions, and I was, fortunate enough to have contractors who were articulate and nice enough to stop what they were doing and explain things to me. I would consider them among my mentors. Even lenders have provided some amount of mentorship to me just in explaining how the financing aspects work. So it's been an incredibly important part of my experience in becoming an investor, and that is a big part of what inspired me to start Jumpstart Lehigh Valley, is the idea of taking what I've been given in my past and paying it forward, because I cannot necessarily pay those people back, but I can pay it forward to the next generation of people out there.
Got it. Emotional discipline. How do beginners avoid emotional buying when they finally feel ready to invest?
Well, we touched on already, try not to fall in love with your properties.
Fall in like with them, not in love.
Yeah, fall in like. Yeah.
I learned that when I was 16 in a sex education class.
Okay.
You're in like with somebody at 16, not in love.
Makes sense. So just some practical steps you could take: write down clear criteria you have in your mind before buying. Get an idea of how much construction you're willing to take on, what your price range is, that kind of what neighborhoods you're interested in, and take some time to write it down. Look at what return you think is appropriate for your investment strategy. Write that down too. Run your pro formas, and you've got to live and die by those numbers. So if the numbers don't work, just walk away. And be patient. Just be a little bit patient to find the right deal. You're not doing something wrong if you haven't found a deal within a certain amount of time. It's better than moving forward on the wrong deal.
Yeah, and this next question ties in because I'm very privy to Lehigh Valley, so I know the market extremely well. From where to and Lehigh Valley has expanded. My Lehigh Valley and your Lehigh Valley is now, Lehigh Valley is up to Lehighton, they claim, and out toward here and out to there, and they're even trying to grab the Poconos as part of Lehigh Valley down 33, which is quite ironic and funny. But for someone in the Lehigh Valley region, what should they analyze about their local market before purchasing?
So if you were a buy and hold investor, it's good to understand the price to rent ratios and neighborhood level trends. Another thing to look at is where people are going to be working. So look at what factors are driving employment in the area, and where, especially if you're buy and hold, where the long-term housing is moving. I also want to say I do strongly believe if it's possible for you, I believe in people investing in their own communities. I think that they make better investors, they make better neighbors, and they make better community members. Not every neighborhood that you happen to live in is the most investor friendly. It depends on your situation. But if at all possible, it gives you such a competitive advantage to really have that, particularly in an urban area, to really have that block to block knowledge of where you're living. Just what's the vibe on this block? Where do I buy my groceries? Where is the train station? Just sort of the recent history of that area. Living in an area gives you knowledge in a way that it's hard to replicate from the outside. And I would also say when you're investing in your own community, it gives you returns not just financially, but also personally, because you and your investment portfolio and your community are all kind of growing in together. And it gives you, an opportunity to benefit from that long-term growth and to do the same for your neighbors.
Yeah, the ABE is definitely Allentown, Bethlehem, East, and there are definitely 3 different engine blocks. They run on their own different engine blocks, and it really depends on your comfort level and who's in your team. Who's your property management, and who's going to maintain these properties with you if you're going to hold them. And then with the Eli Lilly announcement just recently, that's 2,100 jobs coming in for construction, then 850 permanent jobs. So that's going to be very interesting in that Bethlehem market more so. and Easton, I think, is kind of feeding off of North Jersey, Northwest Jersey. I feel more so than ever before, but because people just want to come over the other side of the river, save money on taxes and standard of living and stuff like that. And also, education's real intense in Lehigh Valley, where you got to be in the right areas. So I do agree with you that. What's a couple of favorite spots for you, like that you like? Where are you looking at?
I am always looking. I haven't been actively buying since I moved to the Lehigh Valley, just for personal family reasons. I have a small child at home.
They move around pretty quick, those kids, right?
Yeah. So I've been chasing her around. But I am interested in Allentown. I'm interested in kind of watching what that does. I didn't even, when I moved there, understand how expansive Allentown is, like geographically.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it just keeps going and going.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get to know those corners a little bit better. And likewise, Bethlehem, like some pockets around the universities and things like that. We're looking. We're always looking.
That South Bethlehem area is very unique.
Yeah.
I think between 12th and 19th in Allentown still has some room to play around with. And then, those surrounding boroughs of Allentown and Bethlehem are always interesting, So why should new investors focus more on preserving capital than maximizing returns in their first few deals?
So I think it's important, we've touched on really understanding your construction budget and your true operating expenses, being conservative in your rent and resale assumptions. It's important in those first couple deals to get some early success, even if you don't necessarily want to expect, that you're doubling your money overnight or anything. That's not a realistic expectation. But try to put a floor under your risk and sort of minimize and control your risk in a way that lets you have a little bit of room for upside on those first couple deals while kind of playing it relatively safe, I would say.
So building analytic confidence, what habits build underwriting confidence? Spreadsheets, mock scenarios, rent comps, construction budgets?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing when I am, particularly if I'm looking in a new area, so as I was saying, Bethlehem and Easton and Allentown markets are new to me. So trying to get to know those better, one aspect of that when I run my pro forma is to spend some time. I just go on Zillow and I pretend I'm a rental shopper, and I look around and say, would I pay $1,500 for this apartment over here when I can get that one over there for $1,600? So really trying to understand kind of at a micro level what those comps look like. You can work with construction budget templates alongside working with your pro forma. So the pro forma that I posted does have a little bit of room to write a rough construction or sort of a outline construction budget. And then I have a construction budget estimator on my website as well. And then running mock scenarios in spreadsheets or in a tool like our simulation game that we're adding are ways to kind of get some practice and get some confidence. And another thing I've touched on, but people really, if you find the right person, they'll be happy to give you some advice. It's worth spending some time to be out there networking and talking to people who are experienced in the business or joining a program like a Jumpstart program, and just asking questions. And don't be afraid to come across like you don't know something. Just ask. People are happy to share.
There's nothing wrong with being humble.
Yeah.
Nothing,
No, it's great.
It's
because
great.
that's your free, your opportunity for free learning in the school of life.
I mean, look, I threw you out in front of my holiday party with 125 people in a room.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it. Just like, hey, just talk like what you're going to talk about, and you did fine.
Yeah.
Right? And you didn't know any of those people.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I thought it was a lot of fun. So from teacher to operator, how did you did your background in education influence how you now teach others to evaluate risk and opportunity?
So as a teacher, one thing I wanted to touch on is for people who are transitioning or adding this real estate as an aside to a career in education or social services, you really have a lot of transferable skills that people don't necessarily give themselves credit for. When I talk to other teachers, social services people, even people in administration, teachers are very good project managers. We're seeing a curriculum through from beginning to end. We tend to be good at dealing with people, good at conflict resolution, particularly if you're a high school teacher. And a lot of those skills translate over very nicely into the real estate world. As a teacher myself, one thing that I really enjoyed doing was trying to take something that was complicated, like a math concept, and break it down into simple terms that made it relatable, relate it back to something people understand, make it a little bit less abstract. And that's another thing that I get to do as part of Jumpstart Lehigh Valley, is I get to relate just a little, not too much math, but just like a little bit, back to things that people understand in terms of common sense and in terms of dollars in and dollars out. So as a teacher for Jumpstart Germantown, my goal is to help investors think critically, not just chase trends, focus on structuring analysis, focus on sustainable ownership, and focus on becoming community-rooted investors.
So final advice from you. If a brand new investor listening today wants to avoid blowing up their finances, what is the first discipline step they should take this month?
So just to give some ideas of, again, very concrete, actionable steps, I would say go out there and analyze 5 or 10 deals. Again, these could be properties that you're finding actually for sale, or you can check out our simulation game. And check out our proformas, sample proforma I already have up, the one Joe is going to give me that I'll post. You can try running those proformas on your deals and just see. You don't have to buy anything, but just see, the experience of running those proformas. Make sure to write down your investment criteria. Your goals for a property this is what it looks like. When I find a property that looks like this, I will buy it. That's what you want to write down as your investment criteria. So it does help to know exactly what you're looking for in order to find it.
Well, I'm going to tell you some funny on Facebook. I'm only connected to 2 teachers that had taught me over the last X amount of years. One of them is my history teacher, and one of them is my math teacher.
That's because math teachers are awesome. Yeah.
Just letting you know.
Yeah.
I'm only connected to 2. Okay? And one is my math teacher from high school.
Nice.
She thought I had a handicap back in the day, but that's okay. I was terrible in math in high school.
I
aced it all through college.
Yeah.
I just needed a different environment, and then the light bulb went off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's that way. I almost failed Algebra 1 in middle school.
I
went on to have a math degree and become a math teacher.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not you; it's just the circumstances.
The circumstance and environment. I believe, and I think that's the same thing with real estate. Sometimes you just have to shift the neighborhood, shift the area. I think Lehigh Valley has some room. You just got to be careful, like anywhere else. I think you have a better grade of talent up there now than when I was up there owning real estate. So I think you have good management presence, you got good contractors, you got good mentors, you got good meetups to go to and things of that nature. And I promise you beer at the next interview that we have at Fegley's Bethlehem Brew Works. So maybe a shot, just do a couple shots during the discussion. So how do we find Nancy O'Brien in Jumpstart Lehigh Valley?
So if you are in the Lehigh Valley, please visit jumpstartlehighvalley.org. That is .org, not .com. Now, if you are interested in Jumpstart but you're not in the Lehigh Valley, if you go to gojumpstart.org, there's a list you can pull up of all the different Jumpstarts nationally. If you wanted to try out our deal simulation app, that's at dealbreak.com. It is a work in progress. And I would welcome feedback on it, how people are finding it, if it's too easy, too hard, like, is it easy to navigate, that kind of thing. It's a beta version, I would say, at this point. And then you can reach me anytime by emailing me, Nancy at jumpstartlehighvalley.org.
Nancy, it's a pleasure having you here. We've been working on this, going back and forth the last couple of weeks, and discussions. You're advertising our events now that you're speaking at, which I'm excited about. When we have you at the second Wednesday as well at Fackley's Bethlehem Brew Works live.
Yep.
Yeah, we're in the fishbowl, so it's a controlled room, and we'll have beer and liquor for you.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
We'll have an Uber take you home.
Okay.
I appreciate you taking the time today on Saturday with us
Okay.
at the Creative BRRRR Strategies podcast. But we'll definitely get out those performer worksheets that lenders actually use. And I don't think anybody's willing to probably provide that, but I'm more than happy to do that for you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was really fun.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
A lot of nerve-wracking stuff. It was a lot of fun. I want to thank everybody tuning into our second part series of 3 this morning with Nancy O'Brien at Jumpstart Lehigh Valley. I want to thank Mr. Yarno Perkins of Perkintech, my co-founder of the podcast. You can find us at creativebirdstrategies.com. And we'll be back just a little bit with our next discussion on contract clauses every investor should know. We have Natalie coming in from Nachmanson Law. I'll see you soon. Have a great day, guys. Good afternoon. Joe Scarice, the Creative BRRRR Strategies podcast founder and host. Today, Saturday morning here at TCS Property Management at the 2nd and Chestnut office on the rooftop deck. This is part 3 of our series of great education today. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. You can find all our podcasts loaded at creativebrrrstrategiespodcast.com. And you could also find us on Spotify, Audible, Amazon, etc. And what we try to provide is education, networking, and strategy with strong subject matter every Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But we're now doing one-on-ones on second Saturday of every month. So I have Natalie Klesch-Tournay, attorney at law. I practiced that name a bunch of times. Did I do it right? I did well.
Yeah.
She's a shareholder at Knockmason PC and head of litigation. She took the time to come and visit with me today to discuss contract clauses every investor should know. So how are you doing, Natalie?
I'm very well, Joe, and thank you for having me.
And I hope the
We've known each other for a long time.
I know,
so
but we
this is
never
very
did
much
this.
No, we did not.
No, we've never done this before.
No.
I've been an attendee of your presentations, whether I held them or
Yes.
you held them elsewhere. I've been a fan of you doing your discussions every time. And I always do a follow-up and saying, hey, there was a great discussion.
Yes.
So I was able to convince you otherwise to come to my podcast.
And I always enjoy you participating. You have great questions, and you're a great member of my audience, and it's a pleasure, for us now to speak one-on-one.
So a little background on mine so that where this ties in. I'm a nationwide direct private lender with Park Place Finance, senior account executive. We provide DSCR, fixed to rent, fixed to flip, and new construction. And Natalie and her firm offer a lot of that to clients. And I thought this was just
Loan or interest rates spike, the buyer can exit without penalty. The second critical contingency is an inspection contingency, which allows for full due diligence, structural, mechanical, environmental, and safety, and creates leverage for potential renegotiation. Third is an appraisal contingency, which protects you from overpaying. If the property appraises below contract price, you can renegotiate or cancel. Last but not least, very important, is a title contingency, which ensures that the property has clean, insurable title with no liens, outside claims, or ownership disputes.
So you're very active in the greater Philadelphia market. Where are you seeing the biggest hiccup in that breakdown right now today?
I think appraisal contingencies are very important because this is, as you know, not an easy market.
Yeah.
And values fluctuate, so it's important to protect yourself and have an appraisal contingency in case property does not appraise at the sales price.
Yeah, and that goes to the next question is, why is financing contingency important even for seasoned investors? I'm in the financing space, so I kind of know that, but I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Experienced investors often use creative financing, hard money, DSCR loans, private lenders, bridge loans, but even these lenders can lower the loan to value at the last minute, require unexpected reserves, change DSCR requirements, or even freeze capital lines. A financing contingency gives you the freedom to walk away if financing becomes impossible or economically unwise, which frequently happens in this market and in this kind of unstable environment. Even cash investors sometimes use a form of financing contingency when they plan to raise private funds or refinance immediately after purchase, which is quite often.
Yeah, I'm seeing leverage issues here in Philadelphia, specifically. Not the greater Philadelphia market, but in Philadelphia proper. I see the leverage of construction being backed down a little bit.
Sure.
And the leverage for DSCR is backing down a little bit. They're concerned about value right now.
Of course, yes, because, with interest rates uncertain,
Yeah.
the whole issue with tariffs, and
Yeah.
just a general sort of a level of instability in the economy, these issues come up quite often.
See, most lenders are past the tariff thing.
Okay.
They're more concerned about value and saturation.
Saturation, really?
Yeah, like days on the market are getting heavier.
Sure. Well, that's been the case for a couple of years.
Everything's just getting more. And I think that's where the concern is, like in a Philadelphia-like city, like in
Right.
St. Louis, Chicago. They're all going through the same
Sure.
relative issues of that. But I think the biggest concern is they're seeing inventory up 20 to 30%.
Sure.
They're seeing rental days on the market up 30, actually up to 4 or 5 months now, rentals before they get rented.
Wow.
Oh, that's what's happening here in Philadelphia. So I'm more concerned about DSCR compression. And I'm more concerned about leverage compression because of the concerns of like, hey, you got to have a little more money into this deal because what if that value is not there 6 months from now? So how important does the inspection contingency benefit real estate investors?
So the inspection contingency is very important. It gives you a structured period, usually 5 to 15 days, to fully evaluate the property, which, quite frankly, it's not a lot of time.
No.
And during this time, you have to do an evaluation of the roof, electrical, plumbing, foundation, HVAC systems, termites or other pests, mold, radon, lead, asbestos, sewer scope, well and septic testing, structural and permit issues, and tenant access and lease verification. But for investors, the real power comes from what happens afterward. Inspection results form the basis for price reductions, seller credits, or repair requests. Investors commonly negotiate tens of thousands of dollars based on inspection findings. Without this contingency, a hidden issue becomes the investor's responsibility, no matter how costly. So it's really, really important to include an inspection contingency, because I think a lot of people really overlook that, because especially people who plan to buy something and immediately rehab. But there's so many things that you're not necessarily going to know, and especially I think it's always a good idea, and this may take longer to do an environmental.
Well, that's what I was saying.
study.
Okay, so you got this 15-day window to do this inspection, but you're now depending on third parties to come in and complete this.
Correct.
You're not going to get it done in 15 days. So do I come back to you as the client and say, listen, I need more than 15 days to complete this 15-day
Sure.
window? So how does that work out?
Well, it really depends. You know, if the property has a lot of value, right? Yeah, then you have more leverage. You're going to have more leverage with a property that costs $1 million than you have with a property that costs $200,000.
Exactly.
And if you want a greater window, that's something that can be negotiated. And I think that's
you put that in there somewhere.
Correct.
To kind of leave a door to open.
Correct.
If I need another 15 days because the guy can't get out there, the gal can't get out there to look at something.
Especially, I mean, look at this weather. So because of this weather this winter, so many things have been
Delayed.
restricted and delayed. Yes.
So, what's the purpose of the appraisal contingency?
An appraisal contingency protects you if the property's appraised value comes in lower than expected. This is especially important when the market is hot, which it's not, and buyers are bidding above asking. Although, there's a lot of still bidding above asking in the suburbs.
The burbs have no issues right now.
Correct.
It's all about Philadelphia County proper, I feel.
Right. An appraisal contingency is also important when an investor is using bank financing, or the investment strategy depends on specific valuations. If the appraisal comes in low or lower than expected, the appraisal contingency will give you the option to renegotiate the price, request concessions, split the difference potentially with the seller, or cancel the contract altogether.
Yeah, the appraisal is almost the most biblical piece.
Right.
Of the pie.
Of course, especially if you're either using financing or if you plan to refinance after closing.
And the bigger the deal, the more, one miss, you're way off.
Correct.
The smaller deal is a $200,000 deal. If you're off by $10,000, you're okay with that. But
Right.
if you're off on a $15 million deal by $1 million, that can change the whole capital stack. So that ties into why is title contingency essential, especially for wholesalers. And what's your feeling on wholesaling, where that's all going to as well? I'd love to know what your thoughts on that.
Well, obviously, wholesaling nowadays is a lot riskier than it was 5 years ago. And I think a lot of wholesalers are probably leaving the market because it's just not as easy to make money in wholesaling as it was before, especially also because both the city and the state have imposed new regulations on wholesalers. A title contingency ensures that the seller can deliver clear, insurable title. That comes up in my practice very often, where somebody buys something and then later title issues come up. These title issues can be something such as unpaid property taxes or city liens, contractor liens like mechanics liens, boundary encroachment disputes, which I litigate quite often, heirs or probate complications, prior mortgages that were never released. You'd be surprised at, you could have mortgages from the 70s or even 80s that were never satisfied or were never marked satisfied on the city records. There's also judgments against the seller, especially if you have a seller who has a very common name like John Smith or Tom Smith. You should definitely make sure that all judgments are cleared. And for wholesalers, as you said, there's an extra layer. Some title problems make assignment impossible, and some properties are non-assignable due to deed restrictions or lender conditions. Title contingency allows the investor to exit if the title is not clean, or if the title company refuses to insure the transaction.
Yeah, I've seen the wholesalers disappear, actually. They're either becoming investors because of private lending, because they're not requiring tax returns and things like that, or they're partnering with their investors and taking the wholesale fee within the deal itself. But I'm seeing less and less wholesale in Philadelphia, and I think you're going to see even less when there's so much on the MLS.
Right.
You know what I mean? The opportunities are right there in front of you. Like, if you can't find a deal on the MLS, why bother pay $20,000 in a wholesale fee?
Right.
I mean,
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
So
it's always a huge risk when you're dealing.
I've never been a fan of wholesale.
Right.
Do I work with wholesalers? Of course, because they're great referral partners.
Sure.
And I'll pay them legitimately in direct private lending space. But at the end of the day, most of their deals fall flat because they don't know how to underwrite their deals anyway.
Right.
And that's a concern I have. So, what clause protects the investors from interest rate fluctuations with contracts?
A rate lock or loan terms change clause protects the buyer from unexpected increases in interest rates or changes in loan conditions. For example, if loan terms change materially, including interest rate increases above X%, the buyer may terminate without a penalty. This is critical because lenders may change interest rates, origination fees, reserve requirements, debt service coverage ratios, or closing timelines. Even small rate increases can destroy cash flow on rentals or reduce loan amounts in commercial deals. This clause ensures that if financing becomes too expensive or numbers stop working, the investor can renegotiate or exit. I think nowadays we're not really, I don't know how much of a risk, I guess depending on credit, but interest rates going up are probably not that much of a risk.
They're going down, actually.
Right.
So
they're not that much of a risk.
No, because to be honest with you, we don't traditionally, in the DSCR space, if it's a refinance or a purchase, turnkey. More turnkey.
Yeah.
We're not locking the rate until we get back the appraisal. Okay, now if I see something looming, being announced that I think they might impact up, but usually our rate is baked in months before any true impact from the regular market. We're not regulated. We follow guidelines. We follow hedge fund numbers, more of a 5-year treasury than a 10-year. So we're much quicker than a regulated bank. Where a regular bank is very old school regimented.
Sure.
So we're not very concerned about them losing their rate with us. They might have the worst thing is, your rate was 6 1/4. Now you got to pay a couple $1,000s to keep that rate. Mm-hmm. But it's not going to impact the overall grand scheme. And on construction money, our money's pretty locked.
Yeah.
If I lock you in at 9.99 on a construction loan, it's going to be 9.99 at the closing, unless our verification background on you changes.
Sure.
But we already did all that, so it's really hinging on the appraisal.
Right.
So we're very appraisal oriented in the direct private lending space.
Of course.
So what is an assignment clause, and why is that so important?
An assignment clause controls whether the buyer can transfer the contract to someone else. Critical for wholesalers which we just discussed, and investors using partners. There are three main types. Full assignment rights, buyer can assign with no permission required, ideal for wholesalers. Assignment with notice, buyer must notify the seller, but doesn't need approval. And third, restricted or prohibited assignment. Seller must approve or assignment is forbidden, which kills wholesaling. Without clear assignment language, the investor may be stuck holding a contract they can't execute. For wholesalers, this is the most important clause, as we discussed.
And again, I think that's going away from the wayside. I think you have to be a licensed realtor at this point, and then you need a welcoming real estate office that's going to be complementary to that as well. So, but that leads into, what is the difference between a standard and custom contract clause?
So a standard clause is pre-written and part of a state-approved realtor contract, like a GPAR contract in Pennsylvania. They generally cover purchase price, escrow/earnest money, closing date, property description, disclosures, and basic contingencies. They're designed for traditional home buyers, not for investors. Custom clauses are investor-driven additions written by attorneys such as myself or experienced agents to support specific investment strategies. Examples of these clauses include early access for contractors, marketing rights for wholesalers, timelines tied to lender delays, repair cost adjustment clauses, flexible closing windows, and seller rent-back terms. Investors often win or lose deals based on the strength of this custom language.
So why do investors add contractor access clauses?
Investors need repeated access to the property during due diligence before closing, sometimes daily. Contractors must provide bids, inspect systems, verify structural conditions, confirm rehab timelines, and calculate holding costs. Sellers sometimes restrict access out of convenience, privacy, or tenant issues. A contractor access clause gives the investor the right to bring inspectors, contractors, appraisers, potential partners, and buyers for wholesalers onto the property before closing. This speeds up renovation planning, budget creation, and deal analysis. Without it, an investor may experience costly delays or be unable to complete due diligence.
So what is an earnest money hard versus soft clause?
Earnest money is treated differently depending on its status. Soft earnest money is fully refundable. It's protected by contingencies such as inspection, financing, appraisal, and title, and it's standard during the due diligence period. A hard earnest money is non-refundable, except for title issues, and goes directly to the seller if the buyer cancels. It's often used in competitive or off-market deals. Sophisticated investors negotiate language such as earnest money only becomes hard after inspection. Earnest money remains refundable if lender delays cause missed closing dates, and earnest money becomes hard in phases depending on deal milestones. This clause determines how much financial risk the investor takes on during the contract period.
So we're in Philadelphia County. You guys are right in the epicenter where your offices are. What's your take on contracts and real estate right now in Philadelphia? Are you seeing a lot of your developers identifying new locations, and you're going to have to you shift your focus into other areas and get more proficient outside of Philadelphia right now?
Sure. Doing business in Philadelphia is not easy, and we are seeing a lot of our clients going to the suburbs, doing work in the suburbs, also doing work in New Jersey.
Jersey Shore.
Jersey Shore, it's very hot.
Very hot.
It's very hot because people, a lot of times, they'll bring cash.
Yeah.
These are second homes that they don't need financing. They'll bring cash. So, yeah, there's definitely movement outside of Philadelphia.
And where are you licensed? Just in PA, or?
No, I'm licensed in Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
Okay, so you're able to cover. Are you seeing any of those developers and coming back to you for contract discussions, like in that not Jersey Shore per se, but like that Cumberland, Atlantic, Gloucester County area? Because that Cumberland County market is pretty robust. It's got some foreclosure issues, but
yes,
Vineland's the largest city in the state of New Jersey. Nobody knows that.
Is it?
Yeah, nobody knows.
Really?
That. Yeah.
Bigger than Trenton?
Bigger than Trenton. It's very deceiving.
Okay.
There's a lot of land there.
Okay.
You would not believe that. So you got the biggest city in New Jersey.
That's amazing.
Which is like a rural environment.
It's very rural.
Are you seeing any of your clients looking at that area, or that's kind of like they just go right to the Jersey Shore and just skip it all?
I think they go straight to the Jersey Shore because the prices.
Yeah, they go in there. They could take a Cape, knock it out. You do the zoning documents and put all the contracts together.
That's exactly
Done.
right. Yes. Yeah.
So
I
the
think
Stone Harbors of the world, the Avalons are still hot. The
Right.
Ventnors, the Margates,
Not just that, but also Ocean City.
Ocean City.
Yes. I would say that all up and down the Jersey Shore, it's still very hot because the price points are.
The condo market's slumping, but the houses are doing well. That's the funny part.
Yes.
Because I'm seeing the condo market just going down and down and
Why do
down.
you think that is?
I think HOAs are having a struggle.
Yes. Yeah.
I think they are fighting the STR, MTR environment along with long-term rental, and they don't know where they need to situate themselves. And I think there's a lot of lawsuits that are friendly to condo associations than just a house, and it just causes a lot of capability for a lender to get their head wrapped around confidence between a condo building.
I heard that there are some lenders that refuse to underwrite condo purchases based on, I guess, the
Warrantability.
Yes.
Yeah, so like...
Is that the case in New Jersey or in Florida, or is that all over the place?
I think Florida kind of started it, and listen, Florida, the condo market is usually an indicator for the country where it's going.
Correct, yes.
But, due to what's happened politically in New York, that saved Florida's condo market. Because, let's just call it what it is.
Are you seeing that now?
Yeah,
or
I do a lot of business in Florida.
speculative?
I do a lot of business in the Tampa area. It's a little flat, but there's still money being made there. What I see in the Jersey Shore with the non-warrantables, you need to find a lender, a direct private lender that looks past the non-warrantable, but there's still guidelines that we go by. So, you can't be in a full-blown lawsuit in the place. And
Of course not.
It can't be like one of the Miami condo buildings where one person lives in it and it's 300 empties. That's not going to happen with me as a lender.
Right.
But I will just require...
Well, I think those buildings, people come in cash.
Yeah, they come in cash and they don't worry about the concerns. But most of the buildings that are, say, Jersey Shore, let's just say Atlantic City, Ventnor, Margate, Longport, you're probably... The average person using a mortgage is putting 30% down. Which is not out of the average anyway.
Yeah.
If you don't have 30%, you should be buying that condo anyway.
I agree. Well, listen, a lot of your colleagues pitch the no money down mortgage, so.
That's not my colleagues. I never was into that at all. I mean, I was in regulated banking, as you know, before
Yes.
this. But the last 10 years, I've been strictly in the non-QM space. Yeah, do we? If we're in a punch fest, we don't wear gloves compared to a bank, right? So when I worked at a previous regional bank here in Philadelphia, you had to wear gloves when you fought. I don't have to wear gloves, but I still have guidelines to follow. And it's definitely, you're probably getting more involved with non-QM lenders with legal practice and understanding what they do
Yes.
than the regulated banks.
Sure.
They're the really ones that are jumping in on a lot of this construction projects and things of that nature. So, I mean, your encounter with regulated banking, we go to the same meetings, we'll run into each other once in a while. Do you find it a little easier working with lenders like myself, the non-QM space, comparatively to the regulated banking space? Where do you see?
I think it's definitely easier to deal with somebody like you and than it is in regulated banking, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially, like you said, now it's a tight market.
Yeah.
So it's a saturated market.
Yeah. I mean, days on the market
So there's
for
a lot
rentals
of
are
risk.
up.
Yeah.
Days on the market on inventory is up 20%. Values are down 8 to 12%. New construction in Philadelphia is on, unless you have a lot of experience and you own the property outright and the numbers all make sense from a pro forma, it's not going to get. Now, we just had a big fraud case in Philadelphia. Has that impacted in your clients as well? There's a big fraud case down in Temple. They were inflating prices.
Oh, the Temple.
Now, irony enough, the firm that found it was the firm that did all the legal docs, but that's a whole other discussion. They're just trying to cover themselves. But that's
Yes. I think there's a lot of investigation
Yeah.
in that situation still, so it's really hard for me to comment
Yeah.
and say,
I get it.
I don't know that it's necessarily impacted the Temple market, because I would think that, people do their due diligence.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is, realize that that area is just not as lucrative as it used to be, just because enrollment has fallen off.
Yeah.
And there's less students looking for housing. Also, one thing that I think a lot of people don't think about is there's a lot of squatter issues, not just in the Temple area.
Yeah, professional
all
tenants.
over the city.
Yeah, professional tenants.
All over the city. And, people who own property, who have squatters, come to us, and they're shocked because they think they can just call the police and the police will get them out. The police want nothing to do with them.
No.
You actually have to go to court. Even if you don't, we've had situations where there's groups of squatters. So it's not like there's one person or two people.
Oh, no.
There's groups of squatters going in and out. You don't even know who they are. But you need a court order to get them out.
I used to like the old days where you just take the door off the hinges, and then they could figure out for themselves to put a new door on. You know what I mean? Like, I actually knew a landlord back 30, 40 years ago that used to take the door off the hinges when somebody didn't want to leave. And they didn't know how to put the door back on. So I was like, it was pretty...
Well, but
this is not a long time ago.
A lot of the squatters live without electricity.
No, I get it.
without
I just
heat.
it's very entertaining, but to watch, but sad at the same time.
And did you also know, and this is really interesting, you can't board up your property.
No, I know.
That's a violation of the municipal code.
Well,
So it's hard because, if your property's empty, then, the natural inclination is to board it up to keep squatters from getting in. You can't do that, though.
Yeah,
I mean, you could. You're going to get fined.
So I'm going to tell you some things that you're not allowed to talk about, but I am. So it's actually fun. There's specific zip codes that have been told to us in the direct private lending space we cannot lend on because of the fraud case. And the fraud
Really?
case, yes, specific zip codes we
Well,
cannot.
zip codes being around Temple. Or,
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I could tell you the numbers like that. Okay. 2.
Did you know about the case before the article in the Inquirer?
Oh yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, we know
You know everything.
We know way before a lot of things
Okay.
happen. This is the thing. They said 60 million. As you and I would know, it's more. So it's probably close to 100 million plus. But it all came from one firm that did all the legal docs. For the most part, like 90% of the docs snowballed through one firm that does the legal docs for a lot of lenders.
Right.
So they had to tell everybody because they'd lose their entire firm
Yes.
doing the legal docs. So that's why a lot of direct private lending groups are bringing their legal docs in-house.
That makes sense.
So they can control the narrative a little more. And then new construction, I've seen very experienced borrowers being turned down with free and clear land, shovel ready to go, and the lenders do not want to fund
Because of
just everything that's going on in the market. You got
around Temple, or
just in general in the whole greater Philadelphia market.
really?
It's I had a very savvy, experienced developer. He was sealing debt at 2 other lenders. He came to me. He presented me pretty much a softball to hit, and it was turned down twice
Why?
because the market's too saturated, and we don't.
Was this a multifamily?
Yep, it was 2 6 units.
That's not bad. I mean, 2 6 units is not.
No,
I'm talking about these apartment buildings. Like the apartments,
these are done. I mean, like
I know they're done, but I don't know who like. Is there enough demand for these, like the apartment buildings in Delaware Avenue?
You have now just seen.
How do you have demands for all that?
Well, this is funny you say. My take, we're in 09 again. We're in 09, where the suburban rental outside of Philadelphia or South Jersey is now more expensive than the urban rental in Philadelphia.
Yes.
It reversed. Remember how the rentals here got crazy, really high? You couldn't afford to live in the city anymore. You had to kind of shop around. You could now find a 1-bedroom on Market Street above Trader Joe's in that area.
20th and Market?
Yeah, just beautiful spot, window view, laundry
That's
center.
Murano.
Well, no, next to Murano, but
Okay.
it's around there. I've seen. I mean, if you have an Instagram, you can find it real quick. So all that beautiful settings, hardwood floors, beautiful kitchen, beautiful everything, $1,200 a month.
Wow.
You can get a 2-bedroom, 2-bath right around the same area, not too far in another building, $1,800 a month. That same 2-bedroom, 2-bath in New Jersey or Delco or Monco or Lower Bucks is $2,200 to $2,800. There's a $500 difference in the market value. So, from a legal, from a lawyer perspective, you need to be aware of that, because when these guys are telling you they're going to be able to get market rent, and market rent's compressing, DSCR is compressing, you got a problem. And people and all these developers, there's no tax abatement to kind of have this saving grace. And if they bring it back, it's going to be selective in where they do it or
Well,
how
I think
they do
they
it.
want to bring it back for
Certain neighborhoods.
for commercial to residential conversions.
Yeah, conversions.
Because,
okay, so now you're bringing more rentals to the market. So, and it,
I hear what you're saying.
it's very interesting. And then people are not, 15 years ago, people were dying to come back into the city to live.
Right.
Now people are just looking to get back into the suburb market.
Yeah, but almost every day you hear something in the papers about a conversion to residential. So how do you explain that?
Well, they have to, you're either going to jump on the sword and go bankrupt on the building, right? Mm-hmm. If it goes empty, if it's an empty office building, right?
Right.
Or you're going to convert it into hopefully residential with a little light mixed use, maybe put a gym in there, co-working space.
Right.
And make it appealing enough to try to draw not the market rent, but a little below. People are giving 3, 4, 5, 6 months away on rent to get people to occupy these units.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Okay, so the concern I have is we're getting back to that 2009 environment in Philadelphia, because if you're here long enough, you'll see the same people on the way up and as on the way down, and you see as a cycle. Do I think there's a potential recovery? Yeah, we need some industry to come back. There's no markers bringing people back in.
What industry do you think is going to come back here?
I don't know. Data centers, maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Navy Yards could be a full room of data centers. You could have enough data centers to choke a horse. You and I could play Frisbee for 5 acres down there without getting hit by a car.
Yeah, well, we do have a lot of, eds and meds here. We're known for that.
Okay, but are we retaining them? Yeah, like the retainage for college kids coming out of the colleges in Philadelphia was 52, 54%. At one time it was crazy. It was some high number. Mm-hmm. Are we still at that number? And then with less students coming to these schools,
yes,
is that retainage the same way? Or are they moving out to King of Prussia or the Conchi area? Is that more exciting to them and safer to them than staying in the city? There's just a lot moving. And listen, Philadelphia is no different than Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Chicago, Boston. They're all having the same. If you go up to Boston near the convention center, which was a really tough area back in the day, there's more apartment living there than I've ever seen before. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I was just down in Fort Lauderdale, and the worst area of Fort Lauderdale back in the day, across from the Hard Rock Casino, now it's these beautiful apartment buildings and the Comedy Store.
Well, the demand in Florida
it's all relative. All the cities are the same. They're all going through their shape shifting. Now, look, Lehigh Valley just attracted Eli Lilly. That's 850 permanent jobs, 2,100 temporary jobs. That's a game changer for the valley.
Yes. Well, the Lehigh Valley has also become sort of a bedroom community for the greater New York area since COVID.
And potentially Philly, because they're expanding the lanes going up to the Blue Route. If you go up toward...
Really? Yeah, I didn't know.
They've turned everything's 3 lanes, 4 lanes now, all the way up to Allentown.
Okay, wow. I did not know that. Okay.
They're trying to make that whole corridor...
And isn't there going to be... I don't know how soon this is going to be, but there's supposed to be... an Amtrak line between Scranton and New York.
You and I will be retired by that time. When it does happen, I'll get to go on it I'll take the senior citizen discount if that happens and when that happens. But Natalie, it was really a pleasure having you on the podcast.
It was a pleasure being here.
I threw you a couple things that you didn't even know about. Now you know what you know what you don't know. So how do we reach out to you and stay in contact with you, potentially for working with you for legal services?
So the best way to reach me is via telephone or email. My work telephone, and this is my direct line, is 215-600-2852. And I would give you my email address, but it's quite long. I can spell it because I'm so used to...
Find you on LinkedIn, though.
LinkedIn, that's true.
There you go. The contact information is right in the LinkedIn.
That is true. That's a good point.
Exactly. So I want to thank you, Natalie, for coming into the Creative BRRRR Strategies podcast. We're live here on Facebook and YouTube. I want to just talk about a couple markers that we hit. We had 2 years of our podcast, 150 plus episodes, 10,000 plus downloads. We're every Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on Clubhouse as well as Facebook and YouTube. And then we load to Buzzsprout, to Spotify, and all the other great little social media sites. Second Saturday of the month, we were always going to have educational interviews such as this. We provide education, networking, and strategy. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this morning. I want to thank Mr. Yurdell Perkins, wherever he is, because he needs to turn off the video in just a few minutes. Thank him for his time today and putting together all this great stuff for us. And thank you. Everybody
Happy Valentine's, everybody.
Happy Valentine's Day.
And happy President's Day. And happy Lunar New Year.
See, I learned a new thing today.
Tuesday.
You know what you know, you know what
Yes.
you don't know. Well, thank you very much. And we need to turn this off wherever Yurdell is. Do we know where Yurdell went to?
No idea.
Because we're still live, so we got to be careful what we say. I don't know how to turn it off. But he
No
has
secrets, Joe.
knock on the see if he's around. Is he around anywhere?
We're gonna keep talking forever.
Thank you, Yurdell, for coming back and making a grand appearance. And we're going to be tuning off right now, and thank you.